Today is Tuesday, the 21st of July, 2026. A pleasant good morning to you and a warm welcome to your breakfast show, Good Morning, Sierra Leone. The program has always starts your day with analysis and divergence of news and news and current happenings in the country. We are your presenters. I am Esther Sako.
And I am Emmanuel Samoa. Well, we start the program with the quote of the day. Our quote of the day is from South African Nelson Mandela, and it says, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." I go over it again. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.
That's a food for thought for years, because it has been the reality over the years.
Yes, and quality education, I would say.
So you add quality to it.
Quality, because if someone just gets education without quality, that individual will not be able to change the world.
Exactly.
But quality education empowers one to change the world.
Exactly so. So coming up in this edition of the program, NBSSC, UNICEF and a Global Partnership for Education discuss strategies to strengthen foundational learning in Sierra Leone. Well, this will be trashed in the next 55 minutes of the program. You can be part of the conversation by sending your text message to the number displayed on your screen, or send your comments on our Facebook page, slbc.sl. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone, live on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Stay with us.
Well, the program you are watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone live on the SLBC. We start the conversation proper. We want to usher in our guest to improve foundational learning outcomes in Sierra Leone. The Global Partnership for Education is providing a 4-year 2023 to 2027 grant of $50 million to the government, with UNICEF as the grant agent. The program aims to strengthen foundational learning by improving teacher capacity and providing quality teaching and learning materials to nearly 1.5 million children across the country. In partnership with the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, UNICEF is supporting the ongoing professional development of more than 5,000 pre-primary to primary 3 teachers in every district in the country. Well, in the studio to talk more on this, we have been joined by the UNICEF resident representative, Liv Indriting, and the GPE program coordinator, Emmanuel Ali. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning, sir.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'll start with UNICEF. Firstly, we want you to put it into context. Why did you guys decide to say, let's come up to support foundational learning, especially in Sierra Leone?
So UNICEF supports education for children all over the world, and Sierra Leone is a country that still needs to work on the quality of education, and foundational learning is a key part of that education. And therefore UNICEF applied to become grant agent 4 years ago, and we were fortunate enough to be elected. It's important for us as UNICEF to work together with the government to strengthen the government in their efforts to improve education for children in Sierra Leone.
So, being that the program is ongoing, let's look at some of the strides or steps that this program are tackling. When we talk about the program objective, because we talk about building teacher capacity and also providing teaching and learning materials to children. Let's talk about this one.
I think we have to go back a little bit further to policy making. So Sierra Leone is a country that had made very good policies on education for all, and it's inclusive education. This is very important. Then how do you transform a policy into practical changes for every child in terms of what they're learning? That's where foundational learning comes in. And the focus on starting from P0 in pre-primary through P3 and P4.
So, looking at aside of the policy, the implementation, because the implementation is ongoing, what are some of the successes that you may want to mention that indeed this particular project that you are the grant agents, what are some of the successes that you may want to start mentioning?
I think the one success I would like to mention is the focus on the teacher training that MBSSC has been leading on together with us, rolling now in the 4th year to ensure that every teacher that is already teaching also get updated training, refocusing their teaching from teacher-focused learning to child-focused learning. It's a huge difference in this, meaning that the child is in the center of learning, so the teacher has to focus on the child, has to pay attention if the child understands what he or she is trying to teach them, and then have an interactive conversation with the child during the learning session. More traditional ways of teaching focus on the teacher giving a lecture and children repeating, but this is different. This is interactive learning where the teacher demonstrates, gives opportunity to practice, and then the child come back and demonstrate that they have understood. And if they don't understand, they have the opportunity to ask inquisitive questions to the teacher and get answers and maybe different ways of showing it.
Okay, let us bring you in, Emmanuel, and the Global Partnership for Education and Program Coordinator. So you are putting $50 million in grant as UNICEF is the grant agent. What's the rationale behind pouring such amount of money towards foundational learning in Sierra Leone?
Well, thank you very much for having us this morning. We appreciate the opportunity to communicate to the country on the President's priorities and agenda. I think it's important to establish the foundations here of the genesis of the journey that the President and the government undertook in terms of understanding the educational gaps that have existed as a result of decades-old challenges that we had, as in the war, and many other challenges even during Reconstruction, and coming back to a country where we can try to recover the losses. So the President in 2018 established a national priority. I think it's important for your audience to understand the difference or the relationship in this grant process. So the government established its priorities through the development of a compact. That document was developed by a team of people at the ministry, including the minister that is here, while he was at TSC, myself at the ministry with a team of other people. We developed a compact, a document that reflected the national priority. It is also important to understand that the President at the global stage, the United Nations, had committed to being a champion of education, and specifically a champion of foundational learning. So again, all of this is built on studies done in 2014 that pointed to the fact that our children at age 10, by the time they reach grade 4, are not able to read a basic sentence, a basic passage, and comprehend it, or are not able to perform basic mathematical functions for that age level. So we see there was the new phraseology now is learning poverty. So you're expecting kids by the time they're 10 or grade 4 to be able to perform these foundational functions. And you do test and realize they're not able to do it. Now the question as a government, and again, President Bio has committed to championing education. He firmly believes that education is the ultimate equalizer. No matter where one is born, where one comes from, if in fact you're able to access education and you're able to be educated, you have a chance of fulfilling your full potential. So President Bio features this, and he commits himself to this at at the national level, at the global level. So these studies informed the need not just to spend a whole lot of money on tertiary education, higher education, but to recalibrate the whole structure. If you don't look at the foundation, build the foundation, then you cannot focus on the higher level education. So this is what informed President Bill's focus on education in 2018, on foundational learning specifically, the development of the compact. Prior to 2018, there was a GPA compact, but we developed a very good compact in 2018, which actually set the pace at which we can now focus on foundations, including 4 key pillars. So the first pillar was to focus on early childhood. The second pillar was to focus on teacher development and capacity building. The third pillar is also to focus on data and evidence. How do you collect data? How do you use evidence to inform policy, but also to inform practice, and to look at changes that you need to implement in the school system or the foundational system? And the fourth one is governance. How does the central government, Ministry of Education at the national level relates to districts, districts relating to clusters, clusters relating to schools? How do you use that relationship between the different governance structures to enhance the possibility? So this is what brings us here. 4 years on, we are looking at making sure we are rebuilding the structures of and the foundations of education. So when kids reach that age 10, they're able to, they do have the strong foundation to now go on to high school, go on to senior secondary school, go on to university, graduate to the workforce, and be able to be productive citizens.
Mr. Ali, let's talk about, whilst you're looking at teacher development as one of the key pillars, well, always want to tell you that to ensure quality of education, the ones that are passing on the knowledge, they need to be capacitated. Whilst you're giving out these grants, because usually we see it when we make policies, there's this argument that we just build policies and we try to localize it into our own context, what can be applicable, how we do it. So in terms of teacher development, whilst you guys were developing all of these things before the grants came in, let's talk about how localized is the teacher development context this like.
Well, the whole philosophy behind GP's model is for countries to develop their priorities. The grant does not provide direction as to where they want countries to go. They want countries to develop their priorities. As I said earlier, the 4 pillars include ECD, and in this case, the specific discussion that you want to look at is teacher capacity building and teacher development. We started off with, again, looking at the existing curriculum. There has been reviews of the curriculum at different levels. Curriculums naturally in the education sector should be reviewed often to add new things that needs to be added to the body of knowledge that kids should gain, to remove things that are outdated. So you look at the curriculum, and then from the curriculum we are developing teaching learning materials. So again, foundational learning by definition, or for the purpose of the government's priority, is looking at P0, which is preschool, up to P4, which is class 4, as we would say, right? So we begin to look at those 5 different grades. And the first thing is to develop teaching learning materials. So you do new materials that are in keeping with what Liv was talking about, the structured pedagogy approach and the student-centered approach, right? So we want teaching to be easy. We want teaching to be fun. We want the learning process in the classroom to be an exciting experience for a child going to school every day. If you walk in a classroom and the teacher is doing all the talking and you are just sitting there, there is really no exchange or discovery of knowledge that is happening. A good teacher actually walks in the classroom and allows the kid to discover knowledge, to struggle through the process of answering questions and asking questions and touching and feeling and experiencing. That is how you learn, by collective and collaborative processes. So the structured pedagogy and the student-centered approach development, material development we're doing focuses on this philosophy of pedagogy. right? So that is the process that we use. Now, when you develop the materials, we don't just develop the materials and take them to the schools. We train the teachers. We always have a task team, a collaboration of all the governance structures that will come together, and we have actually used the services of the TTIs, the institutions, to develop and train the teachers. So they develop the materials to start with. The writers of the materials are local writers. They're not international consultants, right? We do have an international consultant that will guide the process, but all of the writers of the materials are local writers, people that are university professors, other people with digital skills are the ones developing the materials. Once we develop the materials, they're validated, they're printed, then we train the facilitators who will then go out to train the teachers in all the grades. When we train P2, we train all the P2 teachers across the country. We go district by district, we take the facilitators, the master trainers, and the whole process, including all the different components, whether it's TSC, the DDs, the district directors in the districts, the DOs, district officers, the SQs, which we'll talk about here, the quality assurance officers, and all the stakeholders involved. We use them to carry on the process, but the process is localized, it's owned by the country. The priorities are developed by the country. The pedagogical reviews are developed by the country. We look at best practices, and the training process is done by local people. So it's contextualized and localized, and it is at the district level that we train. We don't bring people to Freetown to train. We go to each district and we train, and we're in partnership, again, I say, with UNICEF as the grant agent. I think it's important for your audience to understand what grant agency is. Donors no longer give monies to governments to put in consolidated funds. They ask, if governments write compacts and request grants, if they qualify, they meet the criteria, and they provide the funds go through grant agents, and grant agents have to compete, whether it's World Bank, UNICEF, World Vision, any of the international multilaterals can apply if they meet the criteria and they are able to get the grant. Now their role is to manage the grant, is to manage the process, is to monitor the process, to facilitate the process. The government owns it, but they manage the grant. The fiduciaries, the processes, they manage it, and they make sure they're answerable to the grant, to the donor. So, but that is the process that we've engaged in the process of capacity building for our teachers.
Okay, let us bring in the Minister of Basic Education, Conrad Zaki. So now UNICEF and GP are implementing a $50 million grant to improve foundational learning. Over the years, how impactful has it been for foundational learning, especially in the education sector, as the Minister of Basic Education?
Well, first of all, let me take the opportunity to thank you for having me in this studio. Let me also, if you and me have your permission, to use this opportunity to wish all of the kids who are taking their BECE exams this week, particularly those taking social studies and French today, all the very best. I would advise them to read the questions, make sure they understand it before they actually answer the questions. It's absolutely important. And let me go back now to your question. We were allocated 50 million. I think Mr. Ali has indicated the various components, and just for reference, let me just make sure that I go through some of them again. The first part of it, first component, is pre-primary. We made a commitment in 2023 when we did the Basic and Senior Secondary Education Act to provide 1 year mandatory pre-primary education. So part of that grant is to provide the modalities to make sure that this is implemented. As a result of that, we have also attracted $15 million from educational outcome funds to help us to build physical infrastructure to support this process. So that is one gain that we have made as a result of having this grant. The second one, Mr. Ali talked about instruction, what I call instructional core. Instructional core has 3 basic components. The first component is actually on curriculum. We have adopted the structured pedagogy, which is a sequenced pedagogy that you use to deliver foundational learning. Before now, we did not have that. It is based on the science of reading. The significant challenge that we have is actually on our kids reading and understanding. And this is a tried and tested methodology that will give you that result. So I think it's important. The second, it's about assessment. In the educational space, if you're teaching, you need to test whether the kids are learning. And the only tool that you have is through the assessment process. And so far through this grant, we have introduced P1 and P0 and P2 National Learning Assessment Surveys, which gives us an indication whether our kids are learning, where the gaps are. The significance of this in terms of the curriculum is actually, it is used in terms of how we train our teachers. Where there are gaps, we need to fill those gaps. And in that sense, the data that we get from these surveys are going to be used in that. It also helps us to find out what challenges our kids face. And so that is very important. But the third component of the instructional core is actually on the development of teaching and learning materials. I think Mr. Ali has outlined the fact that we have teaching and learning materials that are developed by Sierra Leoneans, for Sierra Leonean kids, and are going to be delivered by Sierra Leonean teachers. So it's very much localized, and I think that is absolutely important. But let me also just remind our viewers that we have spent roughly between about $10 million on teaching and learning materials. The significance of that is that we've had the unions who come here and they tell you that we have not got teaching and learning materials.
For foundational learning or for all?
Well,
because you are here with the representative from SLTU, and he made mention that over the years they have not been receiving any learning material.
Let me repeat. We have different levels of education. No government, and that includes those in the developed world, can actually resource the development of teaching and learning material across all levels. You do it in phases. That is reasonable. So we've started with foundational learning because we know that it's what is called in the business a smart buy. If you invest in early grade teaching and learning, you know what happens? You benefit from the other level. So we've invested that. But also I could tell you, just to allay the fears of your viewers, we've also invested nearly $500,000 in buying reagents for our life practicals. So these are all resources that the government has provided. We cannot do it across the board.
Mr. Minister,
please allow me.
In this, you continue in this, the provision of teaching and learning materials that the projects have done. When you say you do it in phases, did you communicate that with the teachers that all government is going to do the distribution of these things in phases?
Well, I want to thank you very much for asking that question, because it gives me an opportunity to share with the public how these things are done. Firstly, we've got $50 million from a grant agent, a donor agent. We have to deliver on that. Yes? The money is there, we have to deliver within a time scale. The second thing, as Mr. Ali has said, at every stage of the process, we include all the stakeholders. The materials have to be validated. The unions are part of the process. At every stage of the process, I can sit here and confidently tell you that I am the greatest supporter of the unions. And therefore, everything I do in my ministry, they are part of it. That's why we don't normally quarrel quite a lot. The reason being, they are part of the process. I consult them on this process. We don't always agree, because you don't expect the unions to always agree with what we are doing, but at the same time, that consultation will take place. So that's what we have done in the case of instructional core. But we've gone back to the teaching support. We have trained 26,000 teachers. 26,000. But in addition to that, we are going back because we don't believe that the one training is going to do the job. We've gone back. We are now, this week, we are starting refresher training, which shows you what is actually happening. But what is more important, and I really want the public to understand this, is that we are using real-time research to actually assess whether what we've taught these teachers have been implemented in their classrooms. And do you know what we do? We use this real-time data to inform our training of these teachers. Do you understand? To inform the way we design the training courses. Yes? So that is actually taking.
So Mr. Minister, how do you do the assessment of whether the teachers are implementing what they taught for you to inform another training exercise? How do you do it?
Thank you so much for asking that question. So you take trained researchers to go into the classroom to observe. Any educational system should have classroom observations. As a matter of fact, we are training our school leaders as I speak, yes, to actually be instructional leaders. They should go into those classrooms to see what is actually happening in the classroom and to provide support for their teachers. Gone are the days when we will just dismiss those teachers and say they are not good enough. So what we are now saying, you give them feedback, what we call, using what I call the sandwich method. You are actually saying what is good, what is bad, and what needs to be improved, and then you provide coaching for those teachers. And that's how we do it. So that information is now being analyzed at the central point to look at what we need to do to improve on what we are doing in those classrooms. But please permit me to continue with my two last points about what we are doing with that 50 million. The fourth point is about data and technology. I want to specify on, we've talked about data a bit, so I want to specify on technology. Here we are using AI tools to help our teachers to even personalize their lesson plans. Yes, most of the countries in Africa do not have these things. In addition, we have a partnership with an organization called Imagine Worldwide. Imagine Worldwide has just raised $120 million for 3 countries, including Sierra Leone. So we have Rwanda, we have Malawi, and Sierra Leone. Let's assume that that is distributed equally. That is 40 million. And just in case you wonder what's going to happen with that, we want to take tablets into our classrooms.
Have you started implementing this technology in the classrooms?
Yes, my brother. As a matter of fact, the Rising Academy was shortlisted as the best school in the world. And you know what? When I went to Rising Academy to visit them, all these kids had their tablets, they had their headphones and what have you. I was so impressed that I stood right in the middle of these kids.
It's a private school. What about a government school?
No. I thank you so much for that question. Let me tell you why it is not. We have a partnership with Rising Academy. Rising Academy is supporting about 100 schools, government schools, doing the same thing that they are doing in those private schools. Because we want, this is course fertilization, knowledge exchange from the private sector to the public sector. This is what we have through what we call the Education Innovation Challenge. So for me, it is a private school. We are taking the good things from that into those public schools. And the last, by no means the least.
So, Mr. Minister, before you move to the technology, with all due respect to some of these teachers in the public schools,
yes,
some of them cannot even use the computer well. So when you talk about technology, someone out there might be saying, have these guys trained these teachers for them to be trained, or they've implemented, or they have introduced AI
for them to use tablets in class,
when some of these teachers cannot even control the mouse.
You see what
do you expect to them?
You see, this is why I love to come to the studio, because I'm challenged. And it's only when I'm challenged that I have the opportunity to educate the public and to tell the public what this government is doing. Yes, we cannot go into these places and not train the teachers. We have a national digital learning strategy which we developed in the last 2 years. In that national digital learning strategy, we have what is called the five C's. The first one is computers. So here we're using solar-powered computers, we have tablets and all of this. And even your mobile phones is part of the computing mix. Then we have C, which is connectivity. And we look at connectivity in 2 ways. One, in terms of energy, so we use solar power in areas that we don't have energy supply, but also in terms of internet connections. So we have fiber optic and we also have Starlink, which is in our schools. The third is capacity. Capacity is about building the capacity of not only those teachers, but your SQOs, the school quality assurance officers, the people in the ministry. That is the third C. The fourth C is actually about content. How do we develop local content? So it's not content that we've taken from the developed world. These are things that we can develop ourselves. And through that, we even have a learning passport, which UNICEF is supporting. So this is a platform that we use to do all of this, the teacher training, but also for our kids to access learning materials. And last but by no means, coordination. Bringing all these things together. So on that basis, I rest the case.
Okay, continues to us on the program is the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Conrad Saki. And earlier we had the UNICEF Deputy Representative Leave in Grade 10 and also the GPE Program Coordinator, Emmanuel Ali. Well, we'll now take our health tip of today, and today we'll be looking at 16 healthy foods that people living with diabetes can enjoy to help control blood sugar, improve overall health, and reduce the risk of complication. Stay with us as we share simple, nutritious choices that can make a big difference in living a healthier life. Let us watch and learn.
16 best diabetes foods to eat for people with diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Number 1, eggs. The regular egg consumption may reduce the risk of heart disease in a variety of ways, guys. Eggs have been shown to reduce inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, increase HDL, which is your good cholesterol levels, and change the size and shape of LDL, which is your bad cholesterol. According to a 2019 study, eating a high-fat, low-carb breakfast of eggs may help people with diabetes manage their blood sugar levels throughout the day. So have breakfast, have high-fat breakfast every morning. Previous research has linked egg consumption to heart disease in diabetics, but that's not true. However, a recent review of controlled studies discovered that eating 6 to 12 eggs per week as part of a nutritious diet for your diabetes did not increase the risk factors for heart disease in people with diabetes. There you go. Some research also indicated that eating eggs may lower risk of stroke. Hello everyone, if you are looking for exclusive deals, blogs, educational content every week delivered to your email, subscribe to our newsletter at sugarmds.com right now. Number 2, greens with leaves. Now, green leafy vegetables are high in nutrients and low in calories. Ta-da, no surprise, right? But they're also low in digestible carbs or carbs absorbed by the body, so they won't affect blood sugar levels significantly. Now, many vitamins and minerals, including vitamin C, are found in spinach, kale, and some other leafy greens. According to some evidence, people with diabetes have lower vitamin C levels than people without diabetes, and they may require more vitamin C through the diet most of the time. Vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, okay? Increased consumption of vitamin C rich foods can actually help diabetics increase their serum vitamin C levels while decreasing the inflammation and the cellular damage. Number 3, avocados. Avocados have less than 1 gram of sugar. There are very few carbohydrates. They have high fiber content and they're healthy fats, so they won't spike your blood sugar. Avocado consumption is also linked to a better overall healthy diet, good diet quality, as well as lower BMI. Yes, weight loss. Avocados are therefore an excellent snack for people with diabetes, especially since obesity increases the risk of developing diabetes. If you didn't have diabetes, that is still one of the best foods for pre-diabetics and insulin-resistant people. Okay, so it really helps prevent the diabetes. A 2019 mice study discovered that avocatin B, or AvoB, that's a fat molecule found only in avocados, inhibits the incomplete oxidation in your skeletal muscle and the pancreas, and as a result, lower your insulin resistance. Now, We know that more human research is needed when you're taking, conclusions from the mice studies, but still, there's a lot of evidence to show that evidence that avocados can help diabetes prevention. Number 4, legumes. I know not everybody agree with that, but beans are an inexpensive and nutritious, and they're extremely healthy, guys. So beans are
Well, welcome back. We hope you learned a lot from that video that talks about food that we need to eat to make us healthy. We hope you do more research on the type of food we should eat for us to be healthy. Well, in the studio, we still have with us the UNICEF representative who are the grant agent for this $15 million grant for foundational learning in Sierra. Madam Lee, as the grant agent, you are supposed to be sole monitor to monitor the implementation of the programs that are within this particular compact. Everything that the $15 million covers. And we've had several assertions from the minister. And someone out there seated listening to what the minister is saying, that person will be happy, he or she will be happy. As someone, you guys are monitoring this the way the grant is being spent. All of these things that the minister is saying, are they all going on as he's saying it or as it's written in the documents?
So I would say yes. The government is leading on all the program implementation, and UNICEF is also part of it, technically supporting, setting up monitoring systems. The monitoring is done also together with the NBSSC and with the teachers and other NBSSC personnel at district level and local level. And that's how we get the information. We also send out our own staff to be in the field, to be part of it, to observe. We take note, we come back and we discuss with NBSSC, even at the minister's level, and sometimes if we see something that needs improvement. So it's an ongoing process, which is how you improve what you're actually doing, going from good to excellent.
So, giving out this technical expertise on knowledge or assistance on how to guide the process, especially in the development of the teacher capacity. How are you guys doing it?
So, as Emmanuel mentioned before, we bring in expert. For example, in developing the curriculum, an expert, global expert, was brought in, someone who has worked with many countries, so that we can link with the global standards, but it is the professors from different universities and other people with relevant experience that developed the actual curriculum for Sierra Leone and adapted to the local setting. And that's how we bring in both expertise from outside, but also our own people to help coordinate, to support the process.
So, looking at all of these particular global experts that you brought in and some of these efforts that have been made, are you satisfied that indeed the goals that you set, you are hitting those goals, even before the program laps up?
Yes, when it comes to foundational learning in particular, if you want to measure, so the goal is 39,000 teachers trained from P0 till P4, so pre-primary through grade 4. We're in the process, as has been mentioned, and we're doing very well in terms of the numbers. That should then turn into reaching 1.5 to 1.6 million children in schools that are learners, and it should change how education happens in every classroom of these teachers who have been trained. How do we measure it? That's where the quality assurance, and I forgot the full name, officers come in. They are there at the local level. They know the schools. They will go out, they will go and observe. They have been trained to observe, to monitor. They have to write standard reports that has to be collected, come back, and we analyze them. Then we go back out. the teachers who have been trained also are encouraged to and supported to create a support group, so they help each other. And when they go back to the school, they can train other teachers from other grades that weren't in that training, or from similar grades that for some reason couldn't participate. So we're doing multiplication of results here. So I'm very confident that we will meet the goals that we have set out to do together. And there's a much broader group that is supporting foundational learning, and not only us sitting here in the studio, but actually many different actors that are part of the local education group.
So Liv, over the years, it's been 3 years now in the implementation of the process. Have you in any way faced any challenges while doing your work as an agent?
As a grant agent, there's always challenges, I would say, in Sierra Leone, if I may, after almost 6 years here. Things sometimes go a bit slow. You have to work hard to make things move. And that can be a challenge in the rollout of this program as much as any other development program. And we're working on that. How can we then do system strengthening? By strengthening the systems, we are making the systems working faster, more effective, efficient, and we can have better results at a shorter time span. So that's one of the ways we're trying to tackle, for example, this timeline problem that we sometimes face, not only for this program, but as I said, for any development program we're doing.
So we'll go over to Mr. Ali. Is my name Mr. Ali, as the people providing funds, are you comfortable, or are you okay with the way the money that you provided is being spent, how the programs, the pillars that are meant to be fulfilled, all of it, how things are going?
Well, I think to clarify that, I am part of the government, right? My title at the ministry is Director of Partnership and External Resource Mobilization, as well as the National Coordinator for the funders, the GP, right? So
you're actually part of the funders.
Yes.
So that's what I'm asking you.
Indeed.
From that point of view.
From that point
Yes.
of view, and not the government point of view.
Yes, from that point of view, so you have indicators. When you establish the compact, the government says these are the priorities that we want to reform. And then you establish indicators, what are things you want to achieve. Liv just talked about training 39,000 teachers. We're moving in that direction. Talking about building early childhood curriculum, early childhood framework. We've hired an additional 1,000 early childhood teachers. We have hired 220 additional quality assurance officers, what used to be school inspectors. We have hired for each of the districts additional IT clerks to support with data. We haven't talked about another level in the process of the system transformation, which is what we call COP, the community of practice. You train teachers, you provide teaching learning materials. By the way, let me advertise these textbooks that the minister was talking about. I think it's important for the country to know that millions, as a matter of fact, 1.6 million of these materials have gone into schools, which means 1.6 million kids have benefited from these workbooks. It's important to understand the difference between these and just any book. There's what we call structured pedagogy. So because significant percentage of our teachers are not trained and qualified, you want to make teaching a little easier for them. So we have the teacher's guide on one hand, and we have the student workbook. All of the lessons from day 1, unit 1, to the end of the year is structured in here. The teacher is guided from the first step of entering a classroom on how you reflect, how you start the class, to the body of the lesson, to reflections and assessment and evaluation, to conclusions and preparing the kids for the next day. and they come back. So the time that has been taken to develop these materials, which we call structured pedagogy, a philosophy and ideology in teaching that is structured for the least qualified teacher. If they pick this book, they prepare the day before, they can actually enter a classroom and actually teach effectively using student-centered processes. So I think it's important for the public to understand the value of the development of these materials. These are developed by local individuals, university professors, people with skills, and these are of the highest level. And the government is distributed these to all schools depending on the grades. We've developed for P0, we've developed for P1, P2, we're working on P3, we've developed the P3 numeracy. By the way, we're doing numeracy and literacy. Those are two key foundational elements, right? So that's what we're doing with the development of these books. And then they go to the classrooms. And when they get to the classrooms, these teachers are trained, like the minister said. In the next couple of weeks, in 2 phases, we'll be training 16 districts, all P3 teachers. Sorry, the refresher we're about to do now is in P0. So we're training close to 6,000, about 500, 925, almost 6,000 teachers, a refresher course in P0. Remember, the minister talked about the Education Act that empowered and encouraged that in fact committed the government to 1 year of preschool, and we are coming back to looking at how we can build preschool. Prior to now, preschool was the domain of privileged people or parents who make a lot of effort to send their kids to preschool. But studies show that kids need to be prepared before they get to class 1. They need to develop or work on their psychosocial skills, their motor skills, their basic skills on how to relate and interact with people in the classroom. So access, we want to encourage parents all over the country to send their kids to school before they get to class 1, which gives them the basic foundations. Remember when kids used to repeat classes, the most repeated class was class 1. And the reason was kids came to class 1 unprepared with no skills. And so sometimes they have to be there again. So we want parents to send their kids when they're 3 years old, 4 years old, so they can spend a couple years just learning the basic skills, learning how to adapt, learning how to be part of a community of classroom, and then that prepares them. So the government's commitment to responding to the challenges that was discovered in 2014, 2021 in assessments and tests that were done in the country has been this process, which we started in 2023. We'll wrap up at the end of 2027, around November, December. But I think it is also important to note this. We provide a lot of input with a lot of expertise, a lot of support. UNICEF, as a project structure, UNICEF provides counterparts. So the project has components, UNICEF has those components, and they provide a lot of support. But I think it is important to also note that the inputs that are given, whether it's the 23% of the national budget that goes towards education, whether it's the additional millions of dollars that are given to projects as inputs, it is also important that we focus on the district directors and the district leadership and the stakeholders who should ensure that all of this input is reflected in the classroom.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's just do that in the program. Now let us bring you in the Minister of Basic Education. So I'm sure our viewers might want to know if you're able to name some of these public schools that are benefiting from this project. So if we want to go and do a follow-up as to how impactful this project has been since its inception in 2023, if there are any of the public schools that you could name for us?
Let me say this to you, all public schools, so it's not just one.
All public schools?
All public schools are involved in this project, all public schools. I suspect that what you might also be alluding to is the fact that I did mention that the Rising Academy, they are supporting some public schools, about 100 public schools, with things like the Imagine Worldwide. Now this I could make available on our website so that any member of the public can go onto our website and see this. But I also want to take the opportunity to just reinforce some of the things that we have covered this morning. You know, in 2023, Sierra Leone hosted what is called the FLEX. FLEX stands for Foundational Learning Exchange. We were the first country to host this because of the visionary leadership of His Excellency the President. He made a statement that education is a right. That was a defining moment in our educational system, because I remember in the 1980s, there was another president who actually said education is a privilege and not a right. He transformed it into a right. And what that did, it transformed the Sierra Leone educational space from education for the few, the 30%, which I went to school with, to education for the many, which is now, we're talking about 1.6 million learners. It is about 80% participation rate. But I also think that it's an opportunity for me to just tell you what this project is trying to do. One, it is a government-led partnership. We have set the priority. We have decided that our priority reform is foundational learning. We have brought together a partnership involving UNICEF, who is a grant agent, the World Bank, which is funding some of the literacy materials. We've also brought in education above all, which is targeting those kids that have dropped out of the system to bring them back into education through an out-of-school strategy. Also, the second part and pillar of this is we are taking policy into our classrooms. We've talked about the real-life data that we are dealing with. We are talking about the observation, classroom observation. We are talking about the community of practice that we are helping and supporting and coaching our teachers to make sure that they deliver to meet what we call implementation fidelity. It is also about transforming investment into results. In 2023, the President said education should not be considered as an expenditure, but as an investment. And any investment, you have to have a rate of return. The rate of return that we are now talking about is the improved learning outcome for our young people. Okay. And last but by no means the least, let me end with this. The focus is on improving learning.
Okay, so continue to stay with us in this corner. Saki, the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, today is not on the hot seat. The Minister is a bit comfortable. Well, we go back to the review of the headlines of our local tabloid. We start the ball rolling with the Night Watch newspaper that says a possible national security threats. Will there be general elections in 2028? Dr. Alex Bambua is asking the question. Bio bows out for President Faye. Dangote challenges ECOWAS, deliver prosperity through industrialization. This story was qualified in the Night Watch.
Concord Times newspaper banner headline says Dangote urges ECOWAS to prioritize economic transformation. President Bio delivers a landmark 69th ECOWAS summit. And businessman faces alleged 27,000 Canadian visa fraud case. This story and many more you can find on Concord Times newspaper.
And the next one I have here is the exclusive newspaper that says, when Ernest Ouma smiles, Sierra Leone smiles. President Bio delivers a landmark 69th ECOWAS summit. This story is plus more. You find in the exclusive newspaper.
A2Z newspaper banner headline says ECOWAS signs strategic agreements. President Bio's landmark ECOWAS summit leaves lasting legacy for Sierra Leone. Transforming foundational learning, government and UNICEF launch $50 million initiative. This story and many more you can find on the A2Z newspaper.
And the last one I have here is the satellite newspaper that says, as Sierra Leone readies for major global summit, President Bio delivers landmark 69th ECOWAS summit. Senegal's president elected as new ECOWAS chairman. This story is plus more you find in the satellite newspaper.
Permanent newspaper banner headline says President Bio delivers landmark ECOWAS summit. ECOWAS seals landmark partnership to boost food security and regional peace. EPA cracks down on illegal river mining in Tonkolili district. And Salon Awards of Excellence, USA honored 11 outstanding Sierra Leoneans in California. These stories and more you can find on the Permanent newspaper.
Well, viewers, we must inform you that all of the views that there do not reflect the views of the SMBC. We are merely reviewing the headlines of our local tabloids. We still have with us our guests here, and we are ready to close this program. But before we go, let's get a brief remarks from the guest. Lee, what will be your parting shot before we go?
I think I will take the opportunity to salute all the teachers in Sierra Leone because they're doing a very important job to develop the country, to implement the policies that the government has set. And they are using their holidays to do this training, which shows that they are committed. So we should be committed, all of us, to make this program successful, and every child should have the opportunity to learn.
Okay, so thank you very much. She is Liv, the UNICEF country representative. Well, Mr. Ali, before we go on to be a parting shot.
I think I will join Liv in thanking teachers in this country who I think perform perhaps the most important job. The government does not pay them enough. The government is grateful that teachers commit themselves to the most important thing you can do for the future of a country. It's also important, I think I want to note as a project that we have achieved a lot. We have reached, as we have mentioned, 1.6 million learners. We are developing national cadres. We are also building communities that will sustain the process.
Thank you very much. He is GP Program Coordinator Emmanuel Ali. Now, quickly, your parting shot, the Minister of Basic Education.
Well, I want to join all of my colleagues to recognize and appreciate our teachers and all the other partners in this great initiative. But I also want to single out His Excellency the President for his visionary leadership, which has recently been recognized and as he has been nominated as the champion for the GP replenishment, which is to raise over $5 billion to this cause.
Okay, thank you very much. He is the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, Conrad Saki. Well, on that note, that's how we draw the curtains of Good Morning Sierra Leone. I came to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Many thanks to our production crew, especially our producer, Joseph Stanley. Good Morning Sierra Leone returns tomorrow. I have been Esther Sako.
But before we go, let's take the quote again. It's from South African President Nelson Mandela, and it says, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Well, I have been Emmanuel Samuel, and so we talk tomorrow same time. Goodbye, and stay good to your service.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available Brown Gold Natural Cocoa Powder, Sunny Gold Brown Sugar, Neat Fufu Flour, Shito, Pisa, and Moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.